Hello, welcome to a demonstration on how to use a slicer function in Excel within the pivot tables as well as outside the pivot tables. Right, the working definition of what a slicer is, is actually provided here. Right, so a slicer function is in Excel is actually a user interface element that can actually provide a much more interactive way to filter and control the data that is actually displayed in the pivot tables, pivot charts, and other data visualization tools. Right, so slicers, of course, are primarily used in conjunction with pivot tables to enhance the usability and interactivity of your data analysis. So again, to some extent, when you actually look at it, you can see that slicers are pretty close to what pivot tables actually do, right? Not only do they provide a user interface that's much more user-friendly, but they're also able to slice and dice the data as well, just like what slicers would actually do. So you're actually able to filter the data. You can have that user-friendly interaction. It gives you a multi-dimensional filtering of the data, and has a very good visual experience, and also it can actually enhance your presentation. And of course, you're actually able to extract data very, very quickly, right, in real time. Now, in this demonstration, I'm not only going to show you how you can use slicers within the pivot tables, but also outside the pivot tables as well. So which will be a kind of enhanced data visualization tool that you're actually able to use as well. Okay, so for us to be able to start using slicer here is I would actually need to create a pivot table first. So let's go ahead and create a very simple pivot table. We go to insert and we want to create a blank one, and from this particular table you can see it's actually selected, and then we go ahead and say put it on a separate page. Go ahead and say okay. We want to make sure we can see the field list, right, so that we can see the fields right there. Now a very simple summary we want to create is we want the donor name, and we want the amount paid or amount pledged, amount received, and amount owed. Right, it's a very simple one, pretty good for our demonstration. Now in practice, in most cases when you're within pivot tables, usually then you can actually include a filter, right? Okay, you can use a filter. Let's say, for example, you wanted to be able to manipulate the summary by donor type. So all you do is you hold your pointer on the donor type, hold it and drag it into filter, and then it becomes your filter right there. Okay, so you can go ahead and then select which donor type you actually want to generate this particular report for. Now this is where a slicer actually comes in, because a slicer is also a filter function, right? Okay, so here you can see it's actually available right here in set slicer. So you can click on it. Again, just like we did with donor type, we can also select it here, right? Okay, and we can actually select multiple filters with slicers. So we also want to use fund name, the other one that you didn't use, pledge name, right? Pledge date rather. Okay, and then you say okay, and then you can see we've got our slicers, more like, you can imagine slicers being more like types of knives that enables you to slice your cake in a variety of ways, right? Okay, that's basically what one way of trying to visualize what a slicer would actually be, right? Just like we were able to use the filter directly from pivot here, where we would say, let's say, for example, I click on this here and say I want individual. Now you see that the filters are, the slicers are also going to react to that and do okay. You see, all of a sudden, just give me information that is relevant to that particular individual, right? So again, I could actually say I'm removing this particular filter, and then I'm coming back here. Now, with this, I can click on individual, and all the reports to do with individual donor type, or maybe organization donor type, and all of a sudden everything else that's actually showing. Now my slicers tool will also be showing the fund name, the pledge date, only relevant to that donor type, right? So I could filter with any of these fields. For example, the fund name, bed, sanctuary, I click on that, all of a sudden generates that report. And maybe Kids Zoo, it generates a report only relevant to that. Zoo Mobile, it, and even the pledge dates, it's actually highlighting the dates that are actually relevant to that, and also the donor type that's actually relevant to that. So Slicer really enables you to slice and dice the data, right, in a way that can actually be so informative to you. Now, you also observe that a slicer can also be used away from the from the pivot table, right? So let's say, for example, we're going to go back to pledges here to the original data, and then we wanted to insert a slicer. If we go to insert, and sure enough, let's see, is the slicer available? Yes, it is available. But if I click on it, it's not able to function, right? So if you wanted to use slicer without the pivot tables, what you have to do is to convert this data into a table, into Excel table. And you do that by clicking on under tables group, table, then you select it, then you go ahead and say, okay. Now that it's actually selected, right? Now that it's selected, if I again go to insert and slicer, now it's working, right? So now while I'm actually here, I can also do exactly the same as I did under pivot table. I can click on one donor type, onto slice by donor type, fund name, pledge date. And when I say okay, right, my slicers will also appear there as well, right? Isn't that cool? Okay. Now from here, I'm also able to, this list here can actually be filtered based on, let's say I want donor type organization. See, automatically this information changes to that. Bed sanctuary changes to that. And Kids Zoo changes automatically. So you see, I'm slicing and dicing the list of the data. So as you can see here, the difference is that maybe one may argue that it's not as informative, unlike we're under the pivot tables, because pivot table, the data is already summarized and it's presented in a report format, whereas here it's presented in a list format. But you're still doing exactly the same thing, because you could be rushing to a meeting, or you're in a meeting and someone just say, well, I just want to see the list of individual donor types. Right? That's what I want to see. And then you can just connect to a projector so that people can actually see, and you can actually play around, right? While even during your presentation, people are actually able to see real time the information just showing up right away. Okay, so there you have it. You can actually see that a slicer is a very useful tool that can be used with, or rather in conjunction with pivot tables, but can also be used individually as well, as long as you convert your data into an Excel table. Then you still have the same functionality, even though, of course, the data is not as summarized as you want it to be, and it's not in a report format as you want it to be, but at least you still be able to filter and drill down all the specific information that I'm actually looking for. Otherwise, that's all I have for you here. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video, share the video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Bye for now.